Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games, the week in games. We're heading towards the middle of March, and that means snow season? That's right. In the Pacific Northwest, it snowed yesterday. This is very unusual for us. I felt compelled to buy a second copy of Snowdonia to mark the occasion. Actually, it is close to St. Patrick's Day, and all of the St. Patrick's Day gaming goodness that ensues. I personally will go out and buy a Shamrock Shake because I think they taste way better than actual shamrocks. Let's get to the news. Alright, Lord of the Rings fans, and I'm talking to me, I'm excited. There's a brand new game coming out that looks absolutely up my alley called Journeys in Middle-earth. Now, it's kind of a post-shadowing of Mansions of Madness, second edition, and Descent, in that it has an app-centric approach for iOS, Android, hopefully Steam, and that is exciting for some, not for others. But I do find myself very much enthused by the app-driven nature of the games that they provided. So for me, it's right up my alley. It's Lord of the Rings. Yes! I also was intrigued that there's way less dependence on dice rolling for a lot of things. That in fact, the deck that you have, your hand, your characters having their own custom decks, it almost like sort of heralds back to Mage Knight, which is sort of in a Grail level all of its own. But I'm very intrigued by the proposition of how they're going to handle that. And so for me, that is just absolutely, an insta-buy come second quarter of this year. Another news, Tides of Time, one of the quirkiest little fillers I know, has made its way to iOS and Android as well. It is a clever, portable, quick filler game with just a micro game almost. Glorious artwork. I just stare at it going, wow. The game takes 3 minutes, staring at the art takes 4. But I do find that it's meatier, kind of meatier than it appears for a micro game. So check it out. Tides of Time is the name of it. And finally, come August or September, Osprey Games is releasing a game that looks so compelling to me called Undaunted. Now, it's a post-D-Day conflict between U.S. or Allied troops and German defenders. And it's the art and it has a campaign kind of thing featuring, cataloging a historical 30th Infantry Division. The designers for the game have made War Chest, which is very well received last year, and the artists are from Western Legends. This looks like a perfect storm of this game is for Tim. And so I'm excited for it. So if you don't have a chance to see it beforehand, maybe look at pre-ordering it or whatever. But it's called Undaunted, and it looks right up my alley, and maybe yours too. Let's get to my question of the week. Question of the week is, Tim, do you still play the games that you played when you were young? And while the simple answer is one word, and we can get on to the next segment, I'll expound slightly. No, I don't. I really don't. Despite the fact that these are mainstays of the population, I think that, like a lot of gamers, I've become so consumed by what I feel are such advancement and superior advancement for the types of games I enjoy, that no, I don't. Even in casual venues, I don't, because I've almost always found an equivalent modern game that more than does justice to fulfill whatever needs I had for the base game. So Monopoly, Careers, Life, Mousetrap. Twister was not allowed in our house. It was deemed vulgar. And so I didn't play any of those since probably middle school, later school, because by the time I was a teenager, I was just getting on the cusp of trying out war games, Onslaught, D-Day to the Rhine, and those. And so no, I don't. I don't hold any grudge against them. I mean, growing up, those were kind of things those were some of the good times that I had in my youth. Almost always were connected to some sort of either some cool TV show or some board game, before I got into computer games, of course. And so that's it. As far as my kids, they also will probably know. I never introduced them to the classics, because by then they were into Sleeping Queens or Rat-a-Tat Cat, or by then they they'd advanced far enough to be able to go into any of the other games that we have modernized. So, they hold a place in my heart, just like the Model T holds a place in my heart, because my dad's first car was a Model T. It doesn't mean I'm going to drive one incessantly. So anyway, that's it. Let's get to my 3 games. Alright, with St. Patrick's Day, I thought we'd talk about some green games. Blarney, you say? Maybe not. Anyway, let's go with Fields of Green. Yeah. By Vangelis Bagiartakis. I'm sure I mangled the bangle. Fields of Green is a very, just almost a pleasant, intentionally pleasant game where you're building up a farm and you get different ways to build up your farm with different cards, kind of square cards and such. It's not terribly memorable, to be honest. I'd probably rate it a 6. I wouldn't pull it out and go, you guys have got to check out this farm game. But at the same time, it succeeds at being intentionally pleasant. So, anyway, there's that. And also, the Luck of the Irish. Las Vegas. This is a game that I keep around all the time. It is bone dead simple. You roll dice, and you put the dice where you think you're going to win, and then you either win or you don't. So, it's easily a game where if nothing else happens, or I have an audience of people that are just not into board games, I could literally throw this out there and there's almost nothing for them to think about or do. But what's curious is that even though there's almost nothing to think about or do that's deep in cerebral provocation, it still is entertaining, because it still has that sort of it still makes the simplest of choices feel kind of powerful, interesting. So, like it, Las Vegas it's sort of the go-to game that I would take anywhere that I wasn't sure who I was going to play with as far as a level of awareness and familiarity with board gaming. And last but not least, we have Isle of Skye, which is somewhere, I think I loaned it to someone, but that is probably the one closest to an Irish theme. I actually didn't like it that much, but others really liked it. It's it's a strange auctioneering game and a tile building game, and I mean, all the pieces seem right, and I sure like the designer. He's certainly been impressive in tons of other ways. This one just didn't roll my boat. But, I mean, it's still probably 6.5 for me. But anyway, those are my 3 games of the week. And finally, let's get to... Oh, wait, I'm not doing that anymore. Is Tim full of crap? So the next games on the list of games, as far as whether I still believe that I gave them a good rating or not, are the 10 Days series. 10 Days in Asia, 10 Days in Africa, 10 Days in the Americas, 10 Days in the US, 10 Days in the Amazons, or lordy, we all know what it is, in the South Americas, in the Americas. So I still do enjoy these games. It's actually curious, because I would pull out Las Vegas first before anything else. I would pull out 10 Days as another interesting sort of Racco equivalent. That's what they all are. And I don't think my opinion has changed on them. I think, if anything, that I probably I'd keep the whole series, and I would play them, but I wouldn't choose to play them, and I'd probably at least propose a different game before I played them. Not because they lack value or they've eroded in any way, shape, or form over the years, but just because you play them enough, you're like, that's okay. But it's still an easy game. These are still easy games to pick up and play for the most part. I highly recommend Africa. That is my favorite. I like being able to feel like I have options, and 10 Days in Africa is probably my favorite for that. 10 Days in Asia is probably my least favorite of them. They all have tiny quirks, but in the end they play the same. 10 Days of course, in the USA, sure, that was the first and original. For some reason, I just really like Africa. But they're still the same. Like I said, I might maybe dock all but the Africa ones down 0.5 point. So maybe I was marginally full of crap when I originally reviewed them, or not. Anyway, that's it for this week, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.